Hi, I'm Paul Schaefer.
I'm Will Lee.
And you are watching the Letterman Podcast.
Welcome once again to the Letterman Podcast. My name is Mike Chisholm. I love when we have members of the crew here. Brian Cimino's on today. And okay, so as he taught us the production of Late Show with David Letterman, they had the 5 families, and we go through what the 5 families were. These are the different departments of Late Show with David Letterman. And Brian was part of the camera crew. He was a utility for the camera crew, and a job where, you know, it was a high wire act a lot of the time, and you'll see that very, very quickly here. I love the culture within these departments. Super cool to talk to Brian today. This will not be the last time he's on. Paints a very, very nice picture. He's the nephew of technical director Tim Kennedy, and that's how he got his foot into the door of broadcasting and being in the world of show behind the camera. And it's a really, really cool ride. One of the things that I really appreciate about Brian is that he is, to this day, he's still with Colbert. He's one of the few that made the transition over after Late Show with David Letterman ended its run in May of 2015. And to this day, he's so grateful. He's so grateful, and he's so present about the experiences that he has got a chance to be a part of throughout his career that has a lot of very cool memories attached to them. We talk about a lot of those memories here. We talk about a lot about the process of Late Show with David Letterman from his perspective, and just a really great dude. And I appreciate him very, very much. The Letterman Podcast has one sponsor only, and that is hello-deli.com. If you want any Late Show mugs or shirts or anything like that, go to hello-deli.com. The legendary Rupert G. retired from owning the deli, but not from filling your Late Show with David Letterman merchandise needs. We'll pack your order and send it to you ASAP. It's a lot of fun doing the Letterman Podcast. It's a lot more fun having Rupert as a part of this, as well as our sponsor. So hello-deli.com. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy our conversation today with Brian Cimino. Brian, I got to ask you this straight off the cuff. Uncle Tim Kennedy. Yeah. Did you get the gig because of your Uncle Tim, or was it a happenstance? Was it a family business, or did it just was it a coincidence?
No, absolutely because of him. He's my foot in the door, and it's funny. It's the way in the business. I started as a freelancer. I'm not currently a freelancer right now, but I started, as many people still are, and often start as a freelancer. And they all have somebody, whether it's a family member or a friend, that's got them in. They all could point to somebody and say, this person is my in. And I've been in for 1 or 2 people and into certain things. And Uncle Tim was my in, definitely. So he got me on some lighting jobs, just to make sure I wasn't going to flake out on their late call times or their late outs or early call times. And after that, he got me into, my first day was July 3rd. Or no, sorry, I don't remember the date specifically. It was July 2003.
Wow.
And there was an extra camera. George the Hulk Rothweiler was running a handheld camera in the stairwell of the dressing rooms.
Yep.
And he was shooting the Oakland A's pitcher, Barry Zito. I don't remember him. I only know him because of this incident. And he was across in the building across 53rd Street, attempting to pitch a baseball and break the window that we were right next to. So that was my first foray into what life was like in the Ed Sullivan Theater and the surrounding environs. It was pretty eye-opening the first couple of days I got to be there.
Okay, so you were freelancing before that, and he got you the gig, or like you were cold and you came
kind of both at the same time. It all happened like simultaneously. There was a couple of jobs of that he got that he hooked me up with some friends of his to do, like, some lighting jobs, like load-ins and stuff. And then I got and then after I had done some days there, he felt confident enough to give me a shot at being in the theater as a fill-in. And to be fair, like it is in most other ways in the business, like that's your foot in the door, but it's not really how you stay in the other end of the door.
That's exactly it. That's
And
exactly it. Yep.
and I had nobody but him, and more so once I got there, Steve Kaufman and Dan Campbell,
Yeah.
to really show me the ropes of what it's like to be there. And then simultaneously, I was building outside of their relationships through people I would meet on the job. Uh, and I would do sports jobs for ESPN.
Yeah.
So I'd go, do Monday, Wednesday, or Sunday night baseball at Yankee Stadium, or at that time still Shea Stadium, and show up at 6 in the morning, do the game, strike, leave at 3 in the morning. Those were the days. That's the work of the sports freelancer, and a lot of those freelancers on bigger shows that are temporary, not. So it's I got the taste of everything, and maybe
all camera work or all over the place.
Well, I'm a utility, so my job is utility. So I wasn't shooting the camera, doing everything else, but a lot of cable running, a lot of monitors, helping camera guys build cameras in sports. We had to do that a lot. I don't really do that anymore because I'm a staffer freelance. I'm a staffer employee now, so I'm not freelance anymore. But I learned a lot of angles of the business from there, as everybody does. And that's why when we need a fill-in guy now, or even back then, we could just say, who do you know? Oh, well, I know him. He's good, and I've worked with him on these jobs. He's capable. So that's how you stay afloat. And it's in the freelance world, slim pickings in the beginning.
Yeah.
But I was lucky enough to have, like I said, my uncle, who was the boss essentially in the tech side, and his two right-hand men take me under their wing without, like, listen, I was the boss's nephew. They could have treated me anyway and been rightfully so, to treat me cynically, let's say, but neither one of them ever did that. And I know everything I know because of them. So,
it's funny. You look at this generation now and how they have kind of, I don't know about you. I think you and I are fairly close in age. I'm a 76 baby. I think you're probably
75.
75. There we go. Yeah.
Yep.
And the generation now looks at our generation and the older ones, and they talk about things like nepotism and things like that. But really, at the end of the day, when you look at production specifically, I mean, I got my first gig outside of high school because of my dad. He got me on at the with the roofing crew that he helped manage. For the summer. Right. But broadcasting in general. And the behind the scenes of broadcasting, there's a lot of second and third generation folks in that, like a lot of them. And same with cops, same with firemen, same with, it really does become a family business in a lot of ways. But like you say, that might open the door, but you being able to walk through and hang. And then, like you say, very small knit group, where you get to know each other and whatnot. And I love that about it. I love all of these production guys that I have talked to over this time period here in doing this show, where they all know each other from different gigs. And they float around. Like the freelancers are actually some of the most interesting ones because they spend a little bit of time here, a little bit of time there, and they're constantly, they've got so many stories. But talk about being thrust. We'll use the baseball analogy just because it's the easiest way to go. You open the door for that. You thrust into the majors, immediately thrust into the majors. Like this is one of the highest level productions at the time, especially 03. You think about that, the YouTube and the internet is still in its infancy in many ways, right? Like broadcast television at its highest level. You guys doing, 5 shows a week in 4 days. That's nuts. That's what your proving ground was.
Yeah, well, what was funny is that it was a little bit of a trickle at the beginning because I was always a fill-in guy. So, meaning that if there was an extra camera or something, while we were throwing something off the roof, or there was a hose cam and something else that day, then they need an extra set of hands. Or if Steve, Dan, or John Moran, the other staff utility, were taking vacation days, which by that point they had accrued a lot of vacation days. So I was a lot and each passing year that got more and more, and each passing year I spent more and more time there. And by the time the show ended, I think I had been there for almost like 2 straight months, which was unheard of because there were times I wouldn't show up for 3 months. Yep. And I'd be over at the CBS Broadcast Center in the sports studio, or I'd be in stadiums or somewhere, boxing and doing the early show here and there. Yep. So I was filling in and I was really making a living doing it, and it was really starting to work out. Um, but every time I would get to come back here, I would replace myself on other jobs to come and sometimes make less money on Letterman because there would be no overtime that day. But I'd want to be there,
Yeah.
because I'd always want to say yes, And Bob Fowler is our who's someone you might want to talk to too. He's a great guy.
I want to talk to Bob for sure.
Oh, you know Bob? Okay.
No, I don't know him, but I want to talk. My reputation. I want to talk to him for sure.
Okay, so Bob would get call will come in on my flip cell phone.
Yeah.
Another, it's funny. Another aspect that's occurring to me now is that everyone outside of the business that also has to kind of make concessions for the fact that you're in this business, for me at that point, I was trying to make it in this business. So one of my best friends at that time owned a landscaping company. I was out cutting lawns with him, but we could be, in the middle of cutting a lawn, my phone would ring and it's Bob Fowler. Dan threw his back out. Can you come in today? And Tommy would let me go, and I would go, and I would make my way into the city in time for the show, and that was my first understanding that let's not say no to Bob as much as I can. Let's say yes to Bob, and that has paid off because of the kind of people that work culture cultivates.
Were you single at the time?
I was single, but I've actually kind of all lines up. My wife Melissa and I have been together. We've been married since 2009. We've been together since about the same time I started working regularly at the Late Show. So I was single but attached.
Yeah.
And
but no kids or anything like that. Like you were able to visit. I'm in my late 20s, and this is exciting. This is something I want to be a part of. I'm going to take my shot to see if I can entrench and become a part of this thing.
Exactly. That's what I did. And I took advantage of that. And my wife was always understanding about how this is a not unusual opportunity. And she at the time was in another side of the business. She still does it on a freelance basis. She's a media buyer, so she would. When CBS does its upfront every year, that was who they do it for. She would spend another company's money on TV advertising time. So she knew a little bit about what goes on, and then had this other vantage point through me. So it was very easy for her to assimilate and understand that, if this was going to happen, I had to be out. I had to be out till 3 a.m. Sorry. It was a lot of times that puts a lot of stress on a lot of people, and a lot of people bail on it because they, hey, you're not making any money and you're gone. When you are making money, you're gone all the time. So it's tough to. It's tough for some people to manage, but I was lucky enough to have everybody around me pulling for me. So,
and you're a Northeastern boy, right? Are you a Jersey boy?
Yep.
Yeah.
Jersey.
Yeah. Okay. So, safe to say, Letterman kind of a godlike figure to you growing up. Like, did you know it, or were you detached from it and just enjoyed it professionally?
No, I was, even in the NBC days when I was still way too young, but I would stay up way too late and try to stay up and see Letterman, because Carson was a little bit boring to me, at that age, and I knew there was going to be some weird stuff happening. If I stayed up enough, I could see something weird happening. And then all of a sudden, my uncle, cool Uncle Tim, Uncle Tim was always for a while he was showing up on a motorcycle, and it was always had the jokes and the cool dog and stuff. And now he's got this job, where even before that he would bring, when he was working at local news, this is the other family aspect of it too. We work at nightly news with Dan Rapp.
Yep.
And I got to go in a bunch of times with him and see what it was like to be there and see where he worked and sit in Dan Rather's chair and get a little, get my name on the screen with a chyron with my name on it and stuff, and it was like it was a weird amusement park,
Yeah.
So once to find out that he was working, that he got, it was 93, right? So he did get there in 94. I was 18 at the time.
Yep.
And it was, holy cow. Like, there are bands that I like on that show.
Oh, yeah.
And he's there, So it was this. And I remember, I got, when they did the multi-city tour, he brought back some T-shirts, the official T-shirts with this, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. So, and then when we go, like when I got a little bit older, Fish is going to be there. I'm a big fan of Fish. It's all right.
Nice.
We drive into the city, watch a sound check, and then eventually, now here's full circle is that once I started there and then I had kids, my son was born in 2011.
Yep.
And he's been there, like it's his favorite place to be. And my
It's the
daughter,
Ed Sullivan Theater.
yeah, it's like and my daughter too. My daughter's 9, and you get to go to work with dad today. It's like their face lights up, and they want to go they want to go see every nook and cranny. My daughter wasn't born during the Letterman times, but
yeah.
Then one of my favorite videos is Ben sitting on Tim's lap at the switcher, and Tim had taught him to run the top 10 intro, and he ran top 10, and he's like, it's the taxi cab riding through. It's that one with it right through.
Yeah.
So he's doing this with him, and he's laughing his full head off, sitting at the controller, and then we go around and we go get snacks, and then we do this, and like it was like they grew up, with that as a part of their life. It's and they're not taking it for granted because it's a rarity for them to be able to get to go. My son got to go for a full show day for the first time this year, and gave him the headset and everything. He got to spend the day with us doing actual work and then see the show and see rehearsal. So
yeah. And so going back to where we started this thing, okay, would it be, no, would it be surprising at all if by 17, 18, he says to you, hey, Dad, I think I want to get into to production? Of course it wouldn't be. Of course, any kid in that scenario, I would be like, I was just in LA, and a former Letterman writer, his name is Chris Harris. He's now the EP on Frasier.
Okay.
So while I was down in LA to see Dave live and do a couple other things, he said, "Hey, we're filming the season premiere. Do you want to come down?" And I'm like, "Sure." And not only he gave me great seats, EP, right? So I got the good guy treatment. But then he comes and grabs me and he says, "Hey," and he puts me in his back pocket basically while watching the whole show be produced, and I was absolutely mesmerized by it.
Yeah.
It was so cool. There's no feeling like it. And when everyone is at like the heightened vibration of showtime, and the show is happening and everybody is there at high level and performing at high level with that energy, how could any kid not get swept away by that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I put him in the balcony during the actual show because he's only 12, and he's not really, it could be an audience, supposed to be in the audience, so I'll put him up with Greg, the front of house engineer, and he was able to listen to the director talk and he's talking to me, and we're just and it's funny though because that's his perspective, but the thing you're talking about happens. I watch it happen almost every night when the audience comes in, and it kind of renews the idea that like let's not take this for granted. It's like a special thing for everybody to see everybody's face. Be excited at just a little taste of watching the sausage get made. You know what I mean? That's what Stephen says all the time.
Absolutely.
They get to see people just randomly walking around the street trying to figure out what's going on, and it must be really fun to do that. And you can lose perspective of that if you're not paying attention. I think.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, I've talked to plenty of folks, some of them who've actually said this sentiment on camera where one of the biggest mistakes they ever made was leaving the circus and thinking, oh yeah, that show over there is going to provide this or that or whatever. And then going, oh man, because there's nothing like it. There's nothing quite like what you guys do. And your perspective, Brian, is really neat because, you've got the Letterman proving ground, and then you've got the Colbert phase that you're seeing almost equal time now, I guess. I mean, pretty close anyway. Another year or two, it'll be half and half. What do you do for Colbert now?
I'm currently the head utility at Colbert, and I also run the camera during the interviews. So it's there's 4 of us. So it's me, Giuseppe Restivo, who is known throughout the city and probably the country, maybe the world, for his utility skills. He runs with Joe DeBonis, the Steadicam operator. during the show. And then Jose Lara, who recently slid over and sits in the spot that Dan Campbell used to sit in at the robotic cameras.
Yeah.
And then Roberto Lopez, who we got from SNL. He comes over with us now and taking the empty spot that Dan left when he retired last year. So there's this is it's a great crew, and we have a real good thing going here with not only just us, but the camera crew in its entirety. There's John Hannell is the one camera operator left over from the Letterman days.
Yep.
He's actually a 40-year plus CBS.
That's another guy I want to talk to.
Yeah.
Dan talked to me about him a little bit too. I want to talk to him as well. Yeah. I was going to ask, that was my next question. How many folks are on the crew currently that you know of were with Late Show with David Letterman?
So
there's not many of you. There's not many.
Not many,
left.
but not many. Lighting, the lighting department has maybe the most.
Tom. Oh no, Tom's in construction now, I think, actually.
Tom Ballswitch.
Yeah.
Tom Ballswitch. Yeah, he's over. He's there. He's now at he's with the Carpenters now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sean Walters, Jimmy Palazzo, Kevin Casey, Martin Van Beveren.
Is Palumbo still there?
Bill Palumbo's still there. Yeah, Bill Palumbo's still there.
Yep.
He's still running the fly. He's still flying the ropes. John Tudalo's our head carpenter. John was with the show a lot in the Letterman days. Tom Gordon comes back a lot. Those local one guys, and then the props department guys. Actually, I don't think we have anybody left once Pat retired. Pat Farmer retired. Yeah. Which, geez, that seems like a long time ago now.
And Glenn Borders too. He was there. And he retired too. He retired. Yeah.
Now that seems like a million years ago too. I really, time flies when people leave. Yeah. And then on our camera crew, it's just John Hannell.
Yeah.
And then upstairs, Mark Spada, who is the head.
Sound effects. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. I might be getting his exact title wrong there. Eric Ackerblom, he's still there.
Yeah, that's right. I gotta have Eric on too. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a handful. But John and I right now left from the camera crew. And I wasn't even, I was always a fill-in guy at Letterman. So even though I was there a lot, I wasn't staff or a permanent full time there. But
were you in any of the staff photos?
Oh yeah, I always.
Yeah, that counts. Did you get a jacket? Did you get any jackets?
Not all the jackets.
See, that counts. You counts. No, you were.
Here's another thing about being there too is that I was instantly welcomed in by everybody. And this is a through line that runs through, I think, successful shows is that because right now, I see the same thing. It's you have to feel like you belong there and everybody wants you to be, and that's how I felt every day there. And I got my first jacket. I'm like, give me a jacket. I see, and now I got it. Now I got them packed away. I think I probably have just 11 or 12 of them.
Yeah, you would if you were 03, if you got it there. Yeah,
and that's and that's and it's a great thing to just hold on to. And then I come across, like I said, that little
pencil.
Yeah, and I think maybe I don't know if I have it over here anymore. I think I have a lamp post from the. Oh, you got one too.
Oh yeah.
The lamp post from the bridge behind Dave when they threw everything out. I grabbed one of those.
Oh, that's fantastic. I was gonna actually. That's always a question that I have is if anybody. This was saved, and so this is.
Oh, this guy here was, yeah. So was that
behind the monologue spot? Yeah, if you're looking, if you're watching the screen, it's behind Dave's right shoulder. It's the Verrazano.
Yep.
And
that's cool. Yeah, it was weird to see that stuff in the dumpster too. And
well, and that's the other surreal part for a few folks that that didn't get their walk-in papers basically and exit. You think about like Janice Pinino when she was on, she was there for another 3 months after, and so she saw the whole thing happening in front of her. And there are a few people who did, yourself included. What a weird thing
Well, what's funny is that
between.
I actually kind of had a little hiatus during that period, because I was when Letterman show ended, which was a weird, surreal experience in and of itself. Um, I kind of had already been preparing myself to be like, all right, let's dive back headfirst into the sports world because you can't count on this anymore. You know,
Right.
nobody knows what's happening, and there's a lot of things up in the air about who was coming from the old show and who was staying and how they were going to figure that out and who they needed. And I was like, I kind of felt happy to not have to be stressed by any of that. And I kind
Yeah,
of walked
yeah.
away thinking, like, if I never get this call again, then let's be prepared for that. And then I just dove into doing a lot of sports and filling in, taking everything I get just to try to get a foot in somewhere where I maybe could get a steady thing.
Yeah.
And I found myself doing stuff like, boxing for Showtime at the Barclays Center until 3 in the morning, and then driving right over to the broadcast center to do a 5 a.m. at their Saturday early show,
Yeah.
and then going home and at 10 o'clock in the morning and trying to stay awake. I'm like, this is not, it's not really the way it's supposed to be. And then one or two times they needed a hand doing some stuff, and I got a call from Bob, and I was back with everybody, and it was like never left, except the theater was torn apart.
Yeah. Completely different.
Yeah,
What a facility that is. I was there. Oh, here's a question. Do
yeah,
you know if they record the Q&A? Does anybody record the Q&A?
yeah. So what happens? We shoot the Q&A with Stephen, or
Yeah,
with
with
Steve.
Steve. No, with Steven.
Yeah,
Because
we would do it.
he and I
Yeah.
had a little back and forth a few
Oh
months
yeah.
ago.
Well, oh, okay. Yes, they record it, and they bank everything, and then what they do is they have interns come down with iPhones and into the audience and try to get some extra audio of the actual question because Steven's got
Yeah.
the mic on.
Yeah.
So they do record them and they do release them on YouTube periodically, like cuts of them. So they cut
Oh.
together the good ones, and I'm pretty sure they release them on YouTube, or maybe I've seen on the Late Show social media. They which is another thing that's taken off in the new version of the Late Show. Social media. I don't want to say kids. Social media guys, they're and girls, they're absolutely killing it, and that's another you know aspect of the growth in this in this medium. So yeah, they I don't know how often they come out, if there's any schedule for them, but it's really got to be the Stephen have a great answer is really what makes the question prompts it, but it's Stephen's answer that's always the thing that makes it.
It was funny. It was the night I was in town because it was the night before Rupert's retirement at
Oh,
the retirement party.
so I was there. Yeah, I was
Were
there
you at the party?
with my kids. Yeah, my kids were there too.
I'm sorry we didn't connect. I spoke at the
Yeah,
party.
it's
I was
funny.
there,
I
yeah.
barely knows you, but you were always in a conversation with somebody, and I know that you're Canadian, right? And
Yeah.
it's a long ride, it's a long commute. So let's yeah, uh,
Oh man, no,
yeah,
I'm grateful that we're doing this now though, because I
yeah.
wanted to meet everybody, but like it was such a crazy evening. But no, the night before, it was it was great. No people on the inside or whatever. We got the VIP treatment, so we got up in the balcony
Oh,
and
nice.
to see Colbert, and so I put my hand up and he picks me and I'm like, all right, let's do this. And we have a conversation. And the coolest thing is I introduced myself as me. I said, Mr. Colbert, my name is Mike Chisholm. I'm the host of the Letterman podcast. And immediately he goes, oh, I know you. I saw Harvey Goldberg's episode. It was incredible. It was this. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we start the back and forth. Okay, so one of the guys that we know has it on his iPhone, and he won't give it to me. He won't give it to me until permission. He has permission
Yeah.
for me to have it.
Oh, I see.
But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's around. But I just didn't
Yeah.
know if it was recorded or not. But um,
It,
go
that
ahead.
reminds me, Harvey Goldberg, Mike Muller,
Yeah.
Murray.
Yes.
They're all the audio guys that stuck around. Tom Herman.
Yep.
He recently retired at the same time as Dan Campbell. They were also from the old show. I don't want to
Yep.
forget those guys. They're Tomo's history alone would make your head spin.
Yeah, I got to talk to him as well. Oh, there's so much more work to be
Yeah,
done on the show. Thank God.
I
There's so
know,
much more
It's
work.
just a lot.
I'm having the time of my life doing the show, and there's
Yeah.
a lot of fun to be had still. A lot of good stuff coming. So I want to I want to ask the difference between the two shows. If there's one or two things that are the main differences between these two shows, and then I want to dive back into some of the memories you have from Late Show with Dave. But what are some of the major differences between the two shows? Like, is there a difference in hours? Is there a difference in tone and the job itself, or is the job pretty much universal?
It's yes and no for in a lot of ways for that. The call time for us was the same as it always was. It just works out that way. The show schedule is relatively the same.
Yep.
And I'm in at 11. Our crew is in at 11 generally on a regular day, and then we're generally out by 7. Let's say on average, more likely 6:45.
Yep.
Depending whether there's music or there's extra stuff. This show, we do a lot more pre-taping of guests. So a lot of times we'll have a long Monday, a really short Tuesday,
yep.
And we don't do double shows anymore, like we used to do on the old show. Technically, from the technical aspect, from our job performance aspect, a lot of it's the same because our job is, especially as utilities on a show that does the kind of things that both shows do, which were, often, remote shoots or comedy bits in other parts of the building.
Yep.
We work inside this box, and we have X amount of options inside the box to give you what you need. And what just changes from time to time is the specifics of what they need. So if we need to shoot something on the 14th floor, well, then the guys and I know how to get that camera signal from the 14th floor to Tom Carroll in the control room, or to Bill White back then in the control room. And essentially it's always kind of the same thing. The specifics may change, how many cameras, where they need these kind of monitors or whatever.
Yeah.
And then in this world, in the Colbert world, we deal with teleprompters as opposed to there being a whole cue card department in the old.
Yeah.
So that's another, so that just is another avenue that we have to incorporate into our daily, thought process. Oh, so going to be a prompter involved in this. How do we get a prompter running here?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that it's wonderful to have guys like Giuseppe, who was from the old Colbert Report.
Yeah.
And Giuseppe is the guy that Stephen always calls no matter what, because Giuseppe is Stephen's. Giuseppe, this is not working, right? Because that, so he knows, well, hey, Stephen's going to like this. And he taught me all the things that Stephen likes, you know what I mean? So like, well, we want to make sure that this is done this way because this is how he expects it. And that was the boss is a little more present now than I came into the fold of the old Letterman show after Dave had stopped really appearing in a lot of bits.
Well, as he got older, he had to stop doing rehearsal, and he tried to really maximize his energy and that, leading to his longevity increasing because of things
Absolutely.
like that. But when you showed up, it was already, that time had passed already, and it was already in that era. Yeah.
Yep. So I never, rehearsal was very different. So rehearsal was usually done, the monologue was done by one of the Stengels or by Matt Roberts.
Yep.
And then we'd rehearse all the bits at the desk, and it would still be funny. Rehearsal is always fun because you're trying things out.
That I was gonna say, there is a lot of hilarity that happened during that time, and I've been told some of the stories of the rehearsal of Late Show with David Letterman. In those years, sometimes absolutely hysterical. I mean, people would always talk about, we talk a lot on the show here about the rehearsal of the musical acts and things like that, which is always great, of course. But the rehearsal of the blocking of the show, also hysterical, and the fact that it's not Dave, that it is one of the Stengels, or that it is Matt, or whatever else it is,
or even the bits that involve all the crew people, which is one other aspect.
Yep.
I think Dave really loved putting that guy that's a carpenter in front of the camera and seeing what happens. And a lot of these guys were game for it. I mean, like Gene Szymanski was so good. He would always do the bit at the desk of let me do a magic trick for you, but he keeps messing the magic trick up. And he played that part of it. You feel so bad for him. But he's like Gene, and that's why it was so funny. Like, I don't know if everybody told you, one of the famous ones I remember was was Shecky lighting a cigarette, and everybody tried to.
Oh God, so funny because he couldn't get. Yes, yeah. You tell the story. Please tell the story.
I don't even remember what the bit was, but the bit was like, it was Shecky acting like a cool guy or something like that. And he's kind of strutting up in front of the desk while Dave's there and leaning on the desk and pulling out a cigarette and lighting it and taking a couple of drags. But like he was so delicate with the cigarette, like he clearly didn't know what he was doing, and this was totally abnormal for him. And having a headset on, I can hear. My uncle, whose laugh is you can hear it blocks away anyway, and Foley and everybody in the control room just erupting because they just this image is so much. And I don't think a lot of other people may think like, what's so funny about this? It's a little funny, I guess, but like it's when somebody it's that much funnier.
Absolutely.
George Clark in the boiler room eating fried chicken or whatever they had. Like. Why? I don't know whose idea that was, but I'll do it. All right. We'll get a camera on it. Okay. That's kind of what it is. Like, and it's funny, like, especially with the tower drops and those kind of things. My wife, I would come home and she'd be like, what is on your shoes today? I'm like, well, I think that's mustard. And I think that might be some cake icing, and I almost got hit by a truck tire, So, like, I could just go, I could just go on and on and on because like it's like this is what we got paid to do. We got paid to like document 20,000 ping pong balls falling off an 11-story roof. And the best part about all that was the 2 minutes that Dave and Pat Farmer were having a conversation, because you knew that it was going to be some curveballs, and Pat was unflappable.
Yeah.
So, Pat's up there ready to dump the ping pong balls. I'll never forget this one. And Dave goes, so Pat, where do you get 20,000 ping pong balls? And I goes, I don't know, Dave, you call a guy? Dump the things over, and that was it. So,
is there a nicer guy out there than Pat Farmer? I don't know if there is. He's the best.
And that's another testament to how it was. Like, like I said, I would show up. Sometimes I wouldn't show up for 2 or 3 months because they wouldn't have any need for me to be dark. And then I show up and everybody's like, Pat, everybody, how's the kids? How's this? Everybody do. Never without fail. And part of the reason why we were at the Rupert send off and I brought the kids in is because May is, loves my kids, and I would bring my kids in. They want to go, so let's go to Rupert's and get a bacon, egg, and cheese. And then May would give them ice cream that they didn't need, it's like, and it was wonderful. Like, it was such a, like, to come into that world and be like, this guy, Rupert and May, that are on TV all the time are also like, kind of watching over you, God forbid you sniffled in front of May, be walking back into the theater with this pungent concoction that I never was able to finish. I could barely. I said, I see how it cleans with this out, but I don't think I can make it through this. And it was like, until they're gone, you don't realize that, like, well, maybe until you're gone, you don't realize that, like, they were going, they're having this party, and I said, I gotta bring the kids. They gotta say goodbye, and they got, so it was pretty sentimental, and it was kind of one of my first. Well, it wasn't my first, but it was the first one that really was affected my kids, which is kind of hit home,
May is an unbelievably sweet presence on this earth. Just what a sweetheart she is. And that's hilarious to me. The idea of she's also your Chinese herbalist and and you go back.
Yeah. It was so, and it was, and I had a lot of those kind of relationships that I'm very grateful for. Like, Biff was another one. Like, I spent a lot of time with Biff. I would do, the pumpkin explosion every year. And I would always look forward to that. So when we started doing it in Coney Island on the beach, I spend all day and, we set up and we were just hanging out and hearing Biff just, Biff's got a lot of like below the surface wisdom that kind of bubbles up when you have conversations with him. And it was, it was not lost on me at the time, because again, you're always kind of being reminded of where you are. Like, just like, I was just 10 feet from Paul McCartney, and now let me pay attention to this guy who was always, who's seen this and 1,000 things more, So
Okay, so you brought up a moment that I want to ask about, because I asked Tom Balsavich. I've had Tom Balsavich tell me his the story about, and I haven't even had him on the show. I need to have him on the show. I take for granted that we're buddies. But I ask him his Paul McCartney story every time, because he always tells me the story of when Paul McCartney playing on the roof, and how they had this little moment, and he's saying, say it's your birthday. Like, there's a really cool little story there. Were you there for that moment? That particular moment? Okay, being utility for camera one might be stability, but being utility for the rover or for the random stuff, that's where the action, that's where the fun is, right? You got to do some crazy stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's talk about McCartney for a second, just because that's a landmark moment. What were your memories for that moment?
That was a big day, and it was a lot leading up to that day too. Technically, it's a bit of a lift. In the sense that certain things have to happen very early in the morning and very quickly. Namely, we have to get all of our cables across Broadway in the very short time that they're allowed to close Broadway, and then bring a lift up to fly them over the thing. So we have to make sure that everything we possibly need plus spares are in that. And that's true for every department that uses cables, right? So lighting guys have all their stuff in there because they're building a crazy thing over there too. Yep. And we've got like 2 or 3 cameras. I don't remember how many across the street on lifts. We would have a jib. Possibly 2 jibs on the street, and that was always there would always be John Hannah would always be one of those jibs, and often Dan Flaherty maybe, or Karen Grisella was.
Yeah, Dan did a lot of that stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. And then we'd have the handhelds that were on the actual marquee, 1 or 2, often Al Ciolino. That was a list of those guys. There was Al Ciolino, Fred Chimizu, John Curtin, George Rothweiler, Dan Flaherty, and I don't think I'm forgetting anybody. I said Al Ciolino. They all, John Hannah was in that rotating, line of guys that 2 of them would be there every day, and then their schedule would be varied, but they'd always get them for those things. We always needed extra guys and extra cameras, because sometimes there'd be one of them on the roof of the Dream Hotel shooting a giant shot on a long lens, So those were big other things. I also remember that we weren't allowed to say anything about it. Nobody knew what was going to happen.
Right.
And it was a big hush hush thing. And that's a testament to all the people that work there, that stuff gets hushed. Let's respect the show, So there was
Let's respect the show. I like that. That's
that reminds me, I'll get back. I touch on Stevie again too, but there was also a last minute, this might not happen with the McCartney thing. I remember that Bloomberg didn't want to give the okay or something like that, and he needed a personal phone call from Paul McCartney or something like that.
Whoa!
Don't put that to everybody speculating that Bloomberg just wanted to get a phone call from Paul McCartney. Monkey and wrench and say, but who knows? I don't know what the truth really is to that, but I do know that we were getting the very solid information that this may all come down without anything happening, which was super disappointing. But then there was also parts of having to be like, every time you're out there doing something, somebody asks what's going on, and you have to say, So my go-to was something I learned from my buddy Murph in sports, is that anytime somebody asks you a question, you say, a man's going to fight a bear. And the person will go, what do you mean? And he said, where the bear's going to wear gloves. So I was saying that a lot on Paul McCartney Day. But, Paul McCartney Day was the big one. But for me, like, the Fish played on the marquee 2004.
Yeah.
And I was, I'm a guy I've been to maybe 80, maybe 100 Fish shows. I don't know.
You're that guy. You're the guy that travels around with Fish. Okay. This is
awesome. No. This is since 1994 when Uncle Tim got me tickets to their first show at MSG through his buddy that worked at CBS radio, and that was my first show in 1994. So in the 30 plus years, I've got just when they're in the area, I don't go crazy.
Okay.
But
some people do. Some people love.
I'm all in. I'm all in for them. I'm a nerd. But they're right there. They're right there. And Al Ciolino's got the handheld on the keyboard player, and the keyboard player is looking in amazement down Broadway at all these people that are here to see it, and I'm sitting right there with it. shook all their hands as they walked down. And then I met Trey 2 more times, when he was on with Dave Matthews, when he was on by himself. And then Fish came in to do the webcast. That's a whole other aspect of webcast.
Yeah. Oh, I love live on Letterman. And I want to I want to go down that rabbit hole big time. Yeah. No, I want to do shows on all of the different live on Letterman specials that happened. Those must have been fun overtime days.
Yeah. Well, sometimes if that was the only thing that was going on, I wasn't already there, I would come in late for those, but a lot of times, and another testament to the superhuman abilities of the crew, especially the local one backstage guys, is, a lot of times those live on Letterman webcasts would happen after a double show day.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes they would happen to have a double show day with 2 bands.
Yep.
And that already is a huge banner. Like there's no room backstage for anything to begin with. Let's throw another band back there. Let's put the audio guys through this, and and it got more than pulled off every time. It got done expertly, every time. And we all got our changeover from the show to the webcast down to a science pretty quick.
Was there a lot of adjustment that needed to happen?
Oh yeah, the entire stage was the desk went away, the platform and the desk totally went away.
Yep.
They took away a little bit of Paul's area too. Some of the border around the front of what they call the facade around the front of that stuff to make room for the band. The band got the whole stage and got a new audience, a new audience of their fans.
Yeah.
Which was huge. And those were like, that was, I can't even count on 2 hands how many dreams come true that was. I was on stage with Wilco. I was standing there with Fish again. I was on stage with all my favorite bands. I was like, and I get to put this still happened. I get to put the point of view, the POV camera on the drummer. So if you ever watch a musical act on a show, and they'll get a 2 or 3 second shot of the drummer from a weird kind of fisheye lens almost. We were putting those up from since 2003. We use that actually very same equipment since 2003, and I get to meet all those drummers, and because they get intrigued by what's going on, so I get every once in a while I'm just sitting around going, oh jeez, the drummer from Wilco knows my name. You know what I mean? It's like,
I get that one. The cake one was one that always, I love the cake one. Oh, did they ever knock every band that was on that did a webcast did a great job. Like the standard was so high, the venue was so unique.
Yep.
And it was, and Harvey, when he was on here, he did such a good job talking about how it really is the blurring of the line between a live performance, but also a studio recording, because, you did get to augment, you did get to make tweaks to it, to make it even better. Right. My dream is to, if Pants ever allows this, my dream is to do a live on Letterman's podcast and literally go through some of these unique performances and maybe talk to some of the artists now, after all this time. But just that is such a, I got a question about the drums for a second, because one of Dave's one of the things, okay, so at the end, one of his longest running jokes at the end of his run, are those your drums, and Dave of course would go and play the drums and whatnot all the time.
So
any stories about that?
It's funny because it comes a little bit full circle. I love that. But, like the story of, because that was again from before my time, when he would be down in rehearsal and playing the drums. Steve Kaufman would tell me that all the time, and I could just never picture that happening. It just is a weird image for me to conjure up. But I've seen also the supercut of all the times him asking all the guys, "Those your drums or those rentals?" "Oh, I love those originals." And then he would stand on the wings during the performance, and he'd be asking Bill Sheft a whole bunch of questions about the drums. Because Bill Sheft was like his personal encyclopedia sometimes.
Yep.
And especially about drums and baseball. So, excuse me, Bill. So Bill would give him the inside info about the drum kit, and then he'd go talk to the drummer. And then Dave was on recently. Well, I don't even was recently. Jeez,
I was going to ask you about no. This is on my list of questions today. Yeah, let's talk about it.
Dave was on recently in November, I think it was, and he made a comments to the band. And I asked Joe Saylor, our current drummer, I said, did Dave ask you about about your drums. I meant to ask you because he always asks everybody about the drums, and you got a sparkly kit. And he says he did, and he goes, but he's already done that. He goes because Joe Saylor had been there before as on Letterman as a drummer for another musical guest whose name escapes me right now.
I know, I'm hearing it too. Okay, it's gonna come back to me. Yes, yes, that's right.
And Joe said he asked me that on the show. It's like there's some things are just you can always count on that, you know.
Okay, so you brought it up. I wanna talk about it. When Dave came back, I've talked about it a lot on this show. You know, I thought it was an absolute grand slam home run.
Oh yeah.
The fact that night, you know, scrap the act one. You know, do the monologue and then we're gonna do a comedy piece. No, Dave's getting every segment, including having his favorite band, The National, on.
Yep.
The whole show about he was there to introduce them and say goodnight to everybody. What a grand slam home run of a show for anybody who, you know, was waiting for Dave to come back to this franchise that he built. That franchise did not exist before him. Yep. And you got to see it. You were there before. I love the symmetry of that. That must have been an amazing night.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it for a long time, just because it sounds weird to say it as a guy who like I was kind of excited for Dave. You know what I mean? You know, it was going to be another day for us, and I knew that it wasn't going to be a whole bunch of hugging and stuff like that. You know, it's not who Dave is. Well, which is fine. And, you know, I was like, you know, I'm going to come away from this feeling like I got more than I ever expected if he says hi, you know. But I didn't even really cross paths with him. I was standing behind the camera in the dark while he was out there in the rehearsal. And, you know, the one time I thought that he would see me would be that, you know, we do the shot of the upcoming guest in the
Waiting in the wings.
In the commercial break. But we didn't do that for Dave. That wasn't happening for some reason. So that was the only time I would ever be kind of face to face with him. And I found out a lot of the other guys went back and said hi to him after the show. But I also was kind of semi-afraid that he'd be like, "Who are you again?" But I don't think that's really true. I just kind of like have no fears about it. But it was really exciting to see him there and to see what happened, see what happened to the place. You know, his reaction to how different things are, and I guess I wonder how the same some things are.
Yeah.
You know, namely the people and everything. And the guys backstage said he was really great when he was walking back there, Tudelo and all those guys. He likes. You got the distinct impression that he liked the regular guy, you know. Yep. And while you're a guy in his position, you know, depending on who you are, it's a funny contrast between him and Stephen, that you're super vulnerable and everybody wants a piece of you no matter what the situation is, right? And I wouldn't be able to handle that graciously as a human being who knows himself, you know what I mean? Like, so it's a marvelous in both respects that Dave, being the guy he is personally, could also be a performer, be consistently funny and deliver to the audience. And meanwhile, you know, Stephen just exudes performance. You know, Stephen is performing because that's just who his existence is a lot of times, which is delightful for us too. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But, you know, I say this like, I always appreciated coming to the Late Show in the Letterman days because, you know, of all the things we had talked about, and I thought it was like Fantasyland. And then I'm like, what could be as good as this? And then the new thing comes in. I was like, oh, this could be as good as that. So everything is okay. Okay. So, you know, again, just I carpool with our current jib operator, Wade Latz. Yeah. And whether we're stuck in traffic or there's a train delay or anything, he says, who's got it better than us? He says, we're going to go in there. We're going to play with cameras, you know, and we're going to listen to funny people be funny for an hour or two. And then we'll go home and do it again tomorrow. And doing it every day, it's easy for that to get lost on you. Doing it as a fill-in guy, it was not. You know, it was a little bit less, you know, it was a little bit more like constantly being reminded of what, you know, while I'm lugging camera cases up to the top deck at Yankee Stadium where I was yesterday, it was much better.
You know, it's there's a couple of things here. Number one, I think because of the fill-in aspect that you're talking about, that probably did give you the ability to be present and grateful in these moments right now.
Absolutely.
You know, that probably did help with that. But all of you, the sentiment that it seems to be fairly universal, is how you all have the ability. There's two types of this ability. Number one is the writer, who has worshiped Dave, professionally forever, and they get the job and they come in and it's the thrill of a lifetime, but they have to put on this kind of cool coat where it's like, it ain't no thing. Because you can't be too much of a fan and work for the show at the same time, even though you are inside.
Yes.
Okay. So there's that, but for the technical people, it seems to be a similar aspect, but a slightly adjusted, where it's like, okay, you know what? Ain't no thing, because here's the president of the United States, or here's, the biggest actor in the world, or one of the biggest sports athletes of the world, or here's Jungle Jack Hanna with 15 animals, or whatever, something crazy new every day that would be exciting. But we just got to do our job, and we got to be, it's just another day. But your just another day was like all this craziness happening around you, which you could give a little bit of attention to. A little bit of RAM could go to the awesome spectacle you were seeing.
Yes.
But not very much of it, because the rest of it was, it's just another day.
Absolutely. And especially for the camera guys, right? Because listen, you got to keep them in frame and in focus. And
especially for the camera guys.
And that tiger is only 10 feet away. You know what I mean? And I'm standing behind that camera guy, scared, out of my wits, because that's a tiger, right? And they got a chain on the tiger, right? And okay, but who's got the trank gun or whatever? Like, what happens when the tiger starts pulling that chain? Because Jungle Jack Hanna was the youngest of guys when I was there, right? I don't know who's holding that tiger still. So, listen, there is a lot of that, and there is an aspect, the longer you're in here, of I've seen it all, right?
Yeah.
So and I think of it like the Paul McCartney thing all the time. I've several times stood within spitting distance of Paul McCartney, so Justin Bieber is like, all right, you can dance or whatever, right? But it's I gotta catch myself, because I do that all the time. I don't want to be the cynical old guy, because we don't work in the cynical old guy business anymore. So I don't want to be, it's fun. Listen, it's fun on a headset. It's poke fun at some weird stuff that you see on the stage. You know what I mean? It's fun to joke with the camera guys, and it's fun to try to get Jim to laugh at something that, you know what I mean? And it's great to have that ability. But at the same time, while we had Chapel Roan on, I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yep.
She was on maybe a month or two ago, and song was catchy, and she was dressed like pancake makeup Victorian kind of thing, and it's easy to just poo-poo that and write it off as some spectacle, but I'm humming the song all the way home, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I get exposed to a lot of things. I'm exposed to a lot of things I never would have heard of from working on this show, so I'm a big fan of Andrew Bird from Chicago. He was on. I was there the day he was on. I'm like, what's this guy doing? Let me go out and buy that CD. He was still buying CDs.
I've got a list of them. For me, the top of the list is a band called The Heavy out of the UK.
Play that again, right? Play that again.
Twice. He did it twice. He did it when they did How You Like Me Now. And then the next time they were on, they did the follow-up. And the song was What Makes a Good Man, and they brought the horns in, and they did an amazing. It's to this day, it's my favorite arrangement of that song. If that song was on Apple Music, I would listen to that version of it. That the one at the Ed Sullivan Theater where they performed it. And then when they finished it, Dave was like, "Oh, that was great. Can you play How You Like Me Now?" And then they played it.
You got to be ready. You got to know, Dave. There's a band who wasn't ready. I don't remember this one. The Orwells. You remember the Orwells?
And the band, and that's where Paul. Yes.
Like, oh yeah, we figured this one out already. We'll do it.
You were there for that.
Yeah. I think I was there for that. Yes, because I was there for that because I remember the guitar player broke the strings on his guitar.
That's right. That's why they couldn't kick it.
It's funny because I actually got really lucky to be there for a lot of the weird things that happened, because there would be a lot of quiet times too, where it was just kind of well, it wasn't a plot or anything. It was like, it was just a normal day. But I happened to be there on Joaquin Phoenix Day and the weird Paris Hilton Day. I was there for that. I mean, listen, the snowboarder falling day. I don't know if you ever heard about that.
Bill Palumbo told me about that because he built the jump.
Yeah. So
that was crazy.
So I was with the camera operator Clay Parker, who now currently directs local news.
Yep.
And he was the camera guy at the ramp was a giant, like a J, right?
Yeah.
The launch ramp. And we were at the curve at the bottom of the J there where she was, we'd watch her come by and launch up to our left. And I don't know if Bill probably, maybe he touched on this. When I had come in by 11 o'clock, that was built. I might have come in a little early because we had to bring some cameras and stuff outside.
He told me that story off camera, by the way. We haven't told that story on the show anyway. So yeah, no. Whatever you want to say.
It was big. It was a huge ramp, like just awe-inspiring how big it was in the middle of 53rd Street, and the sun was kind of beating on it, and it was full of snow already. And this was while the Roseland was still there, so a short building. The street got a lot more sun all day long, and the sun was, I guess, melting a top sheet and then freezing it when it went down again. So when she had done a rehearsal, I believe it was kind of packed, mushy snow, ready to snow. And then by the time we did the show, it had frozen over. And that was a double show day. And Clay is on a ladder, and I'm underneath the ladder, just holding the ladder and watching out for him. And I have my headset on so I can hear what's going on. And Tara is at the top of the ramp. Yeah. And Dave goes, through the whole thing, what are you going to do? Blah, blah. And, oh, don't you think you should have a helmet for this? And she's like, probably. And then she goes down. And I hear her go, oh, and she caught an edge on the side, and she went sharply off the side of the ramp. And the flat part of the snowboard hit the lens of Clay's handheld camera, which thinking back means that it was pretty close to clocking him right in the head.
Yeah.
And she flew over my head and landed behind me on the opposite side of 53rd Street. And she landed on the snowboard, and then her rear end fell down, and then she landed on her back. And instantly, Dan Campbell was upon her with his EMT background, making sure everything was all right, and making sure she was stable till the actual EMTs got there. Yep. And it was a shock at first. And I don't even know what we do. And Clay doesn't know if he's supposed to shoot this or not, or what. And next thing you know, Dave's walking out the side door. And Dave and a group of people around him are walking out. He's kind of overseeing the situation, I think, because he feels some kind of responsibility for it. And then he went back in and ended the show and canceled the second show.
Yep.
And something I don't know if that had ever been done before. And I remember Fred, he must have like, I honestly don't know what to do here. And I think the right thing to do is to not continue to have a show while this person is, potentially injured. So she came back like a week later, bruised tailbone or whatever, like super lucky. But it never really slowed down the crazy things that happened on the street after that. Travis Pastrana flipping motorcycles. Wim Hof.
Were you there the night Regis crashed the Vespa Dave Bottom?
No, I did not. I was not. No, I was not there.
That was right.
That sounds like hilarious to me, though.
I think it was one of Regis's last appearances there, and Dave gave him a Vespa as a goodbye present of some sort. And Regis goes, "Okay, right. Regis can drive this," and he goes out and he starts to roll down the street, and then suddenly and he dumps it. And
it's funny. Dave, was this a planned Regis appearance or a Regis saving everybody's butt again?
No, it was a plan. This was a planned one. It was one of his last appearances for sure.
Somebody bails, and then it's called Regis.
Yeah,
and Regis was always. He's another guy that was always like just, you could just tell. He was he got to where he was for being not a pleasant, but because he's high energy, but like a really nice guy, running in and out. I remember trying to fix something in the green room. He's like, doing the Regis voice. You guys are all over the place. You're in, you're out. You're doing this. Oh, he's like, this is real. This is real. But yeah, I say it's like like we get warnings, not warnings, but like Steve would be like, listen, by the way, this guest that he comes on, let's not, and it's not only get too specific about things, but like it's like these little things that you learn about being on a crew that allow you to like function successfully in this,
that professional invisibility that you need to learn. Yeah,
and it comes from, like I said before, it comes from Karen. That's what I was saying about Stevie is that from Steve and Dan, who were, absolutely my full-on mentors in this whole situation, along with Tim. Steve really made it obvious that we were supposed to care about the show because these were our friends. You know what I mean? So like, we want Tom Ruprecht's bit to go over because Tom's funny and we like Tom. We're friends with Tom, and Tom, treats us as a friend, and there wasn't a above the line, below the line distinction of like, we don't talk to those people on the stage or whatever. It's not how it was, because, they needed us and we needed them, and we wanted to give them what they needed so that they could keep doing what we were doing, and that was interwoven in between all of the different departments. Foley would talk about how every time something came down from upstairs that we had to do, you would have to consult the 5 families, so, cameras, audio, lights, props, and carps, right?
It has not been referred to that on the show yet. This is the first time that we've heard that little
that was a
little
Foleyism.
tidbit right
there. That was a Foleyism, yeah. And
that was a Foleyism? The 5 families?
He would say it a lot. The first time I heard him say it was at Tom Richards, the head electrician that passed away. Now, Josh, a long time ago. Yeah. That was a real rough one for everybody there. I hadn't been there that long, and he was super kind to me when I was. But Foley was just saying kind words on stage about him, and talking about having to consult him as consulting one of the 5 families every time we had to do something. So it's another person I was lucky enough to be around as much as I was, because I know there's a special type of intelligence that you need to have to be that guy, Jerry Foley, in that position. Dealing with 5 families and dealing with whatever's going on upstairs, and also caring about everybody, and being everybody's friend. It's a prison, and it's a quality you need to have. That Jim Hoskins has a lot of the same qualities. You're juggling a lot of pressure there, and you're trying to spin plates and make this thing land on its feet every day. And while a lot of it is rote, the words you're saying and the processes you're doing, there's curveballs every day, especially with Dave. That was his favorite thing to do. It's like
love the curveballs.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he did that to me. One of my one of the procedures pre-show, you might remember this, is one of us, the utilities, would be sitting on the stairs of the stage waiting for Eddie Brill to come out and do the warm-up. We hand him the microphone. Yep. He would do his deal. He'd hand the microphone to Dave, and then we'd go take the mic from Dave.
Yep.
So I had been there for a while, and Danny Campbell was like, "Why don't you do the warm-up today?" And I was like, okay. He's like, "Dave knows you. Dave's seen you. He's not going to be, taking it back by a new face there." So I'm sitting there, I'm doing it, it's great. All right, I'm doing it. All right, now it's time to get the mic from Dave. I go up there, I walk up to the stage, and Dave looks at me, he holds the mic, and he drops it. He lets it slide down. So I go like this, and it's scrambling. Like, I don't know. He probably thought it was hilarious. Watch me get this guy. So I don't. And it's just the way he did things. Like, you kind of like, you can't get mad at that. It's Dave.
Oh, absolutely not. It's charming as all get out. Like, like my moment where I had my, I think you've heard this. I've had my Q&A. I had my Q&A with Dave in that moment. Right. And moment up in the picture there. Yeah. And I can't believe that moment got captured. Like, why mine out of all the
it's John Filer,
thousands
right?
of them?
John Filer take that picture?
No. It wasn't John. It was a month before before the show went off the air, and the New York Times was there, and they happened to be shooting behind the scenes stuff. So it was one of the very few times that Philo, someone other than Philo, was allowed to be there taking pictures. Yeah. And they wanted a picture of the warm-up that night. And of course, by that point, it's only a month before Dave's done. Yep. By that point, the warm-up now is going as long as Dave wants it to go, as opposed to right on time.
Everything went the way Dave wanted to go, especially with the warm-up.
Yeah. And so in our Q&A, I was a bit of a brat, and Dave started in on me a little bit in a happy way, in a good way. Hey, Paul, check out, these Canadians are supposed to be, the audience is laughing at me and stuff. Yeah. And people asked me about it. Well, what was it like to have this guy that you love so much make fun of you? And I said, it was one of the greatest honors of my entire life. It was one of the greatest moments ever.
Yeah.
ever to have
like he
that
feels
happen.
when Don Rickles did it to him. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's
You know, and
fantastic.
it's like a little playful ribbing from the boss, I guess. You know, and then near the end of the show, funny things would happen where like we'd be coming back from commercial, and stage manager wouldn't be able to find him. Eddie would be running around like, oh, I don't know where he went, and he'd be standing behind Bones in the horn section because like we got a week left. What are you gonna do? Fire me? That's his. That's the whole situation. We would be sitting right on those stairs there.
Yeah.
While that happened, and it's funny too. Because our whole job is really the equipment. So these lenses are and these especially the lenses, the camera pieces, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment just in one camera configuration.
Yep.
I don't know if you ever saw the lens of camera 2, but Dave would come out with that mic, and first he'd take the mic and beat it on his hip, and then he'd pound the lens, and it was like somebody was taking a little needle and sticking it, in my arm every time he would hit that lens. And the other guys were okay with it. He's going to do that. I'm like, this is what I'm conditioned to like, the tally light that was built in had fallen inside the lens. It was this. And then Pete Pelham one day, the head AT on the stage changed the windscreen on the mic because it was so beat up.
Yep.
They made him fish it out of the garbage and put it back on. So because it's like it's the way it is, and that camera like never took a hit. It never like malfunctioned, despite the fact that they brutalized that thing on a daily basis. That's the exact opposite way of things the way things are supposed to be treated like that. That's more,
especially in your world. Especially in your world, dude. In your world, that stuff. That's your job, is to make sure that stuff gets taken care of properly.
Now, to be fair, it is kind of resilient for what it is. I mean, like if you think about how a baseball game works, that camera complement that is shooting the baseball game you're watching was on a truck 10 hours ago on a freeway. Underneath on the underside of a truck. So they're in cases and stuff when they're traveling. But they definitely are not meant to be beat with a microphone.
Did you shoot a lot of stuff? You must have shot a lot of stuff at Rupert's.
Oh yeah, that was a lot of. We find out sometime right before lunch or right after lunch. I'm going to Rupert's today, and it was easy. That was another stuff correcting or filling in the blanks from Tim's technically. On stage we had 3 what we call hard pedestal cameras. That's camera 1, 2, 3, and that was Jack Young, Dave Dorset, and then eventually Al Cholino when Dave retired, and Karen Gazella on 3, and then Karen would jump to camera 6, which was with the jib on that one side of the stage, and then on the other side of the stage was camera 7, and then 4 and 5 were the handhelds that would and those were the 2 positions that would be the rotating crew of camera guys would come in. So all those guys I mentioned before, it'd be 2 of those guys, and they each every camera kind of has an assignment that that it lived inside of loosely, right? You're ostensibly, this is what you're here to do on this side of the stage, but anything could happen. Dave decides he wants to talk about the poster or how hot it is or how cold it is or whatever. We got to be able to run outside. So a lot of times my fill-in, as a fill-in, I would be with camera 5 on the stage left, camera right side of the stage, and something would happen where we'd have to run all the way up around the back of the house and then out the back door, and we'd be on 53rd Street, shooting the poster or shooting this, and one time Dave was doing the toy demo. Remember the
of
Christmas
course
demo? Right. Dan Flaherty's on camera 4 over in front of the band, and he's kind of getting a different angle of Dave playing with the toys. And Dave decides that he's going to take this riding toy and go right out the back door with it onto 53rd Street. So I had to run across the stage and duck under the camera that was on the line so I didn't get on TV and get this cable out the door, and then to be a Dave spotter. I had to find where Dave had disappeared to. He was all the way down the end of the block, and then he decided he was coming back, and I had to find the camera guy, and it was like, like, how do I tell somebody it's what I did? This is what I did today,
Yeah, exactly.
Chase the TV host around on on a toy,
You bring up something that a neat tradition, and we can talk about other neat traditions too. But the toys was always fun. There's one of the famous shots in all the montages that seem to be around about later late show stuff is Dave driving around in a cupcake. That was from that
that segment, right?
That segment. Every year the gal would come with the new toys for Christmas, and
I her name. She's the same. It was the same lady every year.
I know. I forget too.
I remember seeing the cupcake. I can't remember. I don't think I was there for the cupcake, but I loved the traditions and I loved being there for them. And it worked out favorably for me a lot that there was always a need for extra stuff during those times. The meatball on top of the Christmas tree.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to ask about the J. Thomas night. I was going to ask if that was a tradition you got to see a few times.
I love it. And we love it. And my favorite thing was coming in and watching the meatball get grosser and grosser every couple of days that I would come back, and it was like a meat locker in there. So it took a while, but it was. I forget what the story about it. The original was that Vinny Testaverde was supposed to show up, but he didn't. And then they asked Thomas to throw the football. Is that what it was? Yeah.
Well, and then he would tell the Lone Ranger story, and then they would throw footballs at the tree. That's exactly right. Yeah, and so then it became the tradition of.
It was almost like we're ready for it, in the way that that's another interesting thing about how the sausage is made. Let's say we know that's happening. And we know that when that happens, X, Y, and Z has to happen on the stage in order for us to cover it this way. Yep. So by the fourth or fifth time that the same thing happens, we're like, oh, we're doing the meatball in the tree move, the J. Thomas move. We know where every little piece of it, who has to go under whose cable and stuff like that. So every time there was a Kais in the rundown, Know Your Current Events. Was our every time that showed up in the schedule. We'd have to make a move across the stage because he would go from stage left, upstage where his desk is, to downstage right into the aisle. So Dave would have to walk, and we'd have to get all these cable pieces of equipment into new positions, kind of at the same time, without tripping the host. Yeah, among other things, right? So, in that specific move was the few times we employed the boom mic on the stage. I don't know if you ever saw that big piece of equipment. It served mostly like a table for most of the time, but it was there for like emergencies if somebody's lavalier mic went out. Then Al Norwood, another 46 years, I think he was way before he retired. We jump up on there and you reel out that old style boom mic and put it right above the outside frame of the shot and pick up. We'd use that for the Know Your Current Events, and that would. Sometimes it would be my job to roll that over with Al on top of it. So talk about nerve-wracking. Like the first time that happens, it's like, okay, let's get this thing. How does this thing steer again? And what does this lever do? And and it's pretty, I move the thing all day long. And it's like, there's a little bit of like performance pressure there too, which is something that you all can't forget about when you're talking about camera guys too. Like, you got to get that. You got to get that shot. Because it's not happening again sometimes. That's not falling off the roof again. You know what I mean? Like, so
this is one of those things. People ask me about hosting this show, and it's an odd thing to say. I host the Letterman podcast, and people who don't get it necessarily, they don't understand. They're like, okay, so like, how often do you do these things? I'm like, well, at least one a week. So do you have David Letterman on weekly? No, you don't understand. You don't understand. The thing about Dave is he surrounded himself with people who were exemplary in every single department that you could think of about things. I don't think that there would be an instance where someone would have ever said to any of the crews you're talking about, did we get that shot? Did we get that? Like that no, of course you got it. Right. And you guys did what it
that conversation might happen in between two people in the same in the same endeavor, Jerry,
in process to make sure that it was happening, but it wasn't going to be, there wasn't ever going to be Dave at the end of the show going, well, how did you miss that? Like, of course you guys got it. And just like the writers, high standards, everybody from the audience coordinators, the interns, all the way up to head writer. Everybody was at the highest level of what they wanted to do if they stayed there for a long period of time. And that's why we do the show, is to talk about that stuff. Like the high wire act of what you did
Yeah.
And you did it night after night after night after night.
No, the technical end is often is not overlooked, but it's not, if we're doing our jobs right, we're not on camera, right?
Of course. Yeah.
So we're there to give you the visuals and not be part of the show unless we're supposed to, right? So the 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 history of each of these individuals that I've been talking about is like we could do an hour on each of them,
And I plan to, by the way.
the things that they've done. Just talk about the camera guys alone. The things that they've done, the things that you see, and this holds true for Colbert too. In a very varied way too. These guys that you're watching shoot the monologue have shot things that you can't even. You're like, oh my god, you were there for that. And yeah, they were there for everything. How many Super Bowls, John Howell's been to, all those guys. They've all shot every hard thing you could. So to put them on the stage and say, put this guy's head in a box.
Yep.
Sure. Of course they're gonna but also, this truck tire's falling off a building, keep it in frame and in focus.
Be ready for anything. Yeah.
Because they were just following a golf ball against the background of a cloudy sky at Augusta last week. So that kind of stuff kind of flies under the radar, I think, with most people's awareness about across the board television. Like these are not just guys off the street. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I mean, you just defined why we do what we do here, because again, you did it. And then we could go like this and congratulate ourselves, but we can't because there's another show or another shot or another segment or a double show or whatever. We got to just keep going, and we can't take time to reflect on it.
I got another gig tomorrow. I got to do I got to do the Yankee game tomorrow. I got to do the Tonys tomorrow or whatever. Giuseppe's been on some of the biggest shows you could think of. Like do you remember when Hugh Jackman complimented the Steadicam operator during his opening number of the Tonys, I think it was.
Yeah.
Giuseppe was behind that Steadicam operator, making sure he didn't trip over his, while he's running backwards and stuff. That's, and it's weirdly incestuous. That operator was Tori Livia, who is, used to work on the old Colbert Report.
Yeah.
And, is closely connected to our current jib operator, and all these guys are all together, and the reason is because they're reliable and they do it right, and they get you what you want every time. So to be able to be amongst those guys and to be for them to count on me for things is it's kind of like an honor, in a lot of ways, because that's I don't know if you hear the story of the camera operator who got hit with the stray ball at the Yankee game last year or 2 years ago.
No, I don't think so.
Well, he got, he was in the camera well, and there was this errant throw and happened to hit him right in the eye. But that guy is Pete Stendhal, and that guy is known by everybody who's ever held a camera in New York. You say that name, and then now I know Pete, right? Well, everybody knows Pete, and you know Pete because Pete shows you every slow-mo replay on the NFL game you're watching on NBC. You know what I mean? He's on the A game and he's on the sideline and he's the go-to camera, and nobody does it like he does. You know what I mean? But I could say that for so many guys.
Yeah.
It's a trade and it's a craft, and I learned so much just from being in the presence of these guys. It's strange. Al Cimino once told me, "Oh, you're doing camera on." I got a book today doing operating camera at the sports studio, and Al Cimino. I remember Al Cimino and John Curtin found out, like, listen, and this may sound like a dumb thing to say, but if the director says pan left, take a second to make sure you remember which way is left. And I'm like, it's like I'm 35 years old. Of course I'm doing it. And that happened. I'm like, in a minute. And it was like the first time you get those nerves, and you're like, oh, this is why they say it, because they're who they are.
You take that moment. You've just done a very, very good job of summing up exactly why we do this show. Like that is. I appreciate, Brian, how much the care That you call it a craft. Yes, it is absolutely a craft. There's no question in my mind about it. I assume one of the major differences between Late Show and The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, coming in 11 a.m.
Yeah.
A little bit more routine with Colbert than it was with Letterman. With Letterman, there was probably a lot of randomness that was kind of attached to it.
Yeah.
Colbert kind of keeps things on the rails, and there's lots of remotes, lots of video pieces, less remotes, I should say, lots of video piece type stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas Letterman, you kind of never knew where you were going to go and what was going to happen that way. That was one of the major differences, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, it's however, you still got to be on your toes because things change a lot during the day, especially with the show, like the way Steven likes to do the show being so close to the cutting edge of the news of the day. Sometimes, the rewrite goes, beyond, and their process is slightly different in the specifics, but but in the end, it's relatively the same. I had a point I was going to make, but it escaped me for a minute.
Random things that with Dave, like
randomly. The good example of this is a story that Jim Hoskinson tells is the near the end run of the Letterman show. Jim came to watch a show. He came to sit in the audience because he was going to have a meeting with Jerry or whatever. Fully after that, and at that show, somebody stood up during the warm up talking to Dave and says, "How come you never throw anything off the roof anymore?" And as soon as that person asked that question, Steve and I, as we always would do when we were in this situation, we're across the stage like, "Okay, let's go." I look at Dan. We're gone. I'm downstairs to get the handheld. Steve's in the other room to get the cable. Somebody's calling to make sure that the hatch is open. And by Act 2, we got a camera on the roof, and they've also got lights, props to throw off the roof, and people to do it in 25 minutes, let's call it. So that happened, and we heard this story first from Jerry Foley. Was that the way Jerry told us that afterwards? He was talking to Jim, and Jim goes, "By the way, that was in the script, right? That was on the run. That was planned, right?" He's like, Jerry's like, no, we had to do it in the moment. I mean, that's what he's been doing to us for 23 years, he was saying, So
what did you throw off the building? Do you remember what you threw off that night?
I honestly don't.
We got to figure that out. It was near the end, though? It was near the end?
Yeah, it was definitely near the end. I don't know if it was the last week, but it was really close.
Okay.
Yeah. It was definitely it was obviously after the announcement that Colbert would be taking over. So it was very close. I don't remember the specifics, but there were some really.
That's amazing. Like just that even alone. And then of course, the signature shot of the and that was the other beautiful thing. You raised two really cool points here too, as well. Number one is you didn't really know, everything looked spontaneous and you didn't know what was spontaneous and what wasn't.
Right.
That's one of them.
Yeah.
And then the second one is, and then it brings it around to the fact that with Letterman, and it happened a little bit with Colbert the night I went and saw him. There was a little bit of that spirit as well. And I assume that will continue to kind of grow. I mean, God, Dave had this 30-year run. So, and you saw him near the tail end of it. So the inside jokes, the idea where Dave would actually be doing the show inside the show for the theater itself, or the show inside the show for the crew and the stuff that was going on. There were many layers to it. It was what the audience saw at home, but then also, and so they throw the thing off the roof. And this happened during the Q&A. So of course, Jerry's going to, and they show the person in the audience. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Because while that's happening, somebody's, got a camera on that guy. And then instinctively, even if it was not something as obvious as the throwing the thing off the roof, but an offhand remark, this happens a lot. And I remember specific happened 2 weeks ago. Somebody said something, people from Italy were in the audience and they asked a question, and Stephen had an opportunity to mention Italy, and right away, Wade on the jib was on that person.
Yep.
As soon as the Italy was in the air, and that's kind of like what I also learned, from Stevie specifically, because I do this job that Stevie used to do before he passed. So kind of tragically for everybody. Yeah. He would do camera 9 on this show is just gets the the holdups at the desk. So when there's a picture that Steven says, "Oh, this is you, at the Met Gala," and there's a close up of that, and I watched Steve do it, and then when Steve would be out, I'd do it, and it was a little bit nerve wracking to do, but he taught me all the tricks of how to make sure you're in focus when the thing, when the picture comes out, and so I think I forgot where I was going with this.
No. It's the random shot of not the random shot. You guys had to be
ready. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's the idea that so now I've learned to watch what's going on in Steven's body language. And, if Steven's talking to somebody like this, and he kind of goes a little bit like this, and I see his arm go, well, I'm already going in. Yeah. Right. Because I want to be, because I'm maintaining a 2-shot in case the director needs to cut to it in an edit or something like that. It's always there. But then when that comes in, that's another testament. Steven puts that in the same spot every time. So if Steven didn't put it in the same spot, I'd be racking focus trying to find the focus. But I always find my focus beforehand on a little tiny spot on the table that I know, because I know that's where he's going to put it. Yep. And that's something I learned from Steve right away. First thing he taught me, right? And that's the difference about some people. Like, he never feared that I was going to take his job. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of places in this business where guys will be like, yeah, that guy, gave me the cold shoulder because he doesn't want to tell me what he knows. Right away, it's like, no, we want this to go well. We want you to do well, and we want this to go. So, like, that's why this whole thing is successful. That's why the other show was successful too.
Yep. So, God, we've done 90 minutes. It doesn't even feel like we hardly started here. Okay, so I'm grateful to hear this. Okay, so here's how the kind of the 1-2 punch works, or how I see it happening. Like, for example, we had Dan on, and Dan and I went 2 hours, and it was great. And he's like, "Oh, I can't wait to come back," because we barely scratched the surface, just like
sure.
So there's always the get to know you stuff, and now Dan's got 5 or 6 things that we didn't talk about that were amazing memories that we'll cover those the next time he comes on. So that's gonna happen with you and I. Like that's gonna be great having you on again. Okay. But that being said, you're at a party or at a function of some sort, and it comes out that you used to work for Letterman, and then there's somebody like me at the function going, "Oh, I love Letterman, hey," and they walk up to you and they say, "Okay, tell me some of your top 2 or 3 moments that you just loved from that show." What are your go-tos? What are the top of the list when laymen come up to you and ask, "Oh, man, what were some of those moments that you loved?"
Fish on the marquee. Yeah. Definitely. It's hard to not make them all musical moments, to be honest.
Make them all musical moments. I love music. I love that. Yeah, no, make it all musical.
That personally was a huge thing. And for my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, it was one of the times I got to really use my literal standing, meaning that I was standing on the stage. There was 3, I don't know if you know how Fish operates, but the fans are a little bit nuts. And, once they found out this was happening, the band tried to get ahead of it and was like, "Listen, everybody, this doesn't start until 6. So don't show up until like 3, please." But 8 in the morning, they were there, So streets got, I'd say, between 54th, maybe even almost 55th, right? 55th, and then maybe 52nd Street.
Yep.
With a mob of people on the opposite side of Broadway. It was a mob of people. And my wife, my girlfriend at the time, was at working on 57th, like 5th. And I said, come on down. And she couldn't get, and I said, "You can go sit in the camera area, like where we have the lift and all this stuff. You don't have to be in the crowd." And the cop wouldn't let her through, doing his job because she's just a regular person.
Yeah.
So I'm happened to be on the marquee doing something. And I said, "Just point him at me. And I could see her from down in the corner of 53rd pointing up at me, and I'm waving to the cop, and the cop sees me and he waves me, and then he lets her through. And I was like, "My magic? Is this magic?
You're the fucking man, Bri." Yeah. That was it right there. In that moment, you were the fucking man. That was it.
Another thing, when you say you're at a function and somebody asks you these questions, it's really, it's been fun for my friends too. You know what I mean? It's great to be able to kind of spread the joy and not step on anybody's toes while you do it. So when we do the webcast, I have some friends that were huge Queens of the Stone Age fans. And,
that was another, yes.
That was a rock one.
Another good one. Yep.
And another drummer that I got to make friends with, one of my favorite drummers ever, John Theodore. I got to make friends with him because I put that POV camera on him last year, so he knows my name too. And it's like that's like great. So my buddies are in the front. My buddies are in the front row because I told Vinny. I asked Vinny security guard, I had 2 buddies coming. Can we get a spot for him? He's like, yeah. And he puts them right up in the front, and same thing, Ryan Adams is like, they're right up in the front, and, even now, this production department, this entire production in and of itself makes things so easy for us. Like I fill out a Google form and, somebody that wants tickets from me, everybody goes, oh, can I, some people gingerly approach you and say, can you get tickets? And I'm like, yeah, what do you want? When do you want them? Let's do it right now. Because like, it's like, they make it so easy. Yeah. Because they like us, you know what I mean? Yep. And that's not lost on us. And that's why it's like that reciprocation again. We're like, they clearly care about us, so let's care about them, and that's, I got that from Steve and day one,
I got a Colbert question, a moment from Colbert, and you may not have been part of this at all, but I have my very favorite moment, my very top moment, other than when Dave came back to the Ed Sullivan Theater. That's my favorite Colbert moment now. Mm-hmm. But up until that point, I have one moment that is my very favorite Late Show with Stephen Colbert moment, and it was when Spike Jonze was on, and Spike Jonze shot an alternate opening to the show that night. And I don't know if Spike
Jonze or the Daniels.
It was Spike Jonze. They brought Grover was in it.
Yes.
And they had John create this really somber, melancholy version of the theme. Yeah. And it was like it was jaw dropping to me. And I bet you I've watched it 50 times.
Stuff happens all the time on this show. Like I'm gonna tell you, on this current show, the stuff that we shoot is so it's like hilarious premises, but also the work that goes into the production is the things. I don't know if you've seen. Have you seen the Shower Witch?
Oh yeah.
What a huge lift for the art department to build that upside down room, and then with the spinning camera, and it was like, and then we just did spend 24 hours in a well for Mother's Day. Did you see that one?
No, I didn't. You know what? I've got the last couple weeks on the PVR. I've only watched them quarterly. So I'll watch that one. The
premise is that all mom wants for Mother's Day is to spend 24 hours at the bottom of the well where nobody will bother her. and our art department made this well. Like it was like a half thing that we could shoot into, and they had been working on it for like a week. It was backstage, and would just take it would have things would be added onto it every day. It had moss and it had this weird glaze on it, made it look wet. I was like, these people are geniuses and things that they can do, and the work that they're willing to put in. And this is a phrase that comes up a lot on this show because it comes from Stephen. When he really likes something, he says, "That's dumb. That's really dumb." That's what he says when he really likes something. So we come away with a lot of things. This is really dumb. But it's going to be a hit because that's why, So that's another, like, the list of favorite things, I think, is reminding me now. The Bob B.B. Boberson, remember those?
Oh, bits? Tim Thomerson, are you kidding me? I'm still trying to get. Tom had some. He had a reason that he couldn't come on the show last year. I'm trying to get him on. I'm trying to get Altman to. Thank you. Yes, I love Tim Thomerson
because we come back from lunch ready to like kind of shoot this.
Tales from the Old West. Yep.
And it's Tales from the Old West. And the backdrop is like stunning. And like, what is this? Yeah. This is beautiful. And like they made this thing into like, it looks like they're on a campfire from the Three Amigos. And then it's just a vehicle for like Johnny Dark to turn to the camera and say something ridiculous, right? And it's like how much did this cost? Does it matter? Right. No. That's what the money's for. You know what I mean? Like to do stupid stuff, and sometimes it's hard to get a handle on like, Jesus, this is real. This is work. This is the work. There's people's sweat went into this.
Absolutely. Okay. So now so we had some tender moments about Steve Kaufman. I'm glad about that. About Foley. I'm glad about that. That's great. Anything to say about Alan Kalter?
Oh God. Yeah.
You shoot a lot of stuff with him, or is it just seeing him shooting the shit backstage?
Yeah, I often was on the side. His funny thing about Alan Kalter is I was also often just feet away from him.
Yep.
When he would do those creepy camera turns, where, and he look down at the low camera, right? So that's another thing, we'd find out. We get this. This ties into the kind of process of things too. Is that like at some point we'd see that okay, there's an Alan Coulter turn tonight in the monologue in the act 2 or whatever. Yep. So we got to get this camera configuration set up. The camera's got to be on a little hi-hat. And it's got to be on the stage, and we have to have an extra camera there. I can't remember if it was an extra or if it was just camera 5. But we'd have to move the boom out of the way, and this monitor would have to be here, and this would have to be there. And this was just the Alan Coulter on camera configuration, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But Alan Coulter was, and along with guys like Bones, they were like, there's like this weird thing that happens in showbiz. You've probably seen it. You probably noticed it. Like, let's say Stephen or Dave, well, mostly Stephen too, like, we'll introduce somebody and they'll come out and they'll shake hands and it's good to see you. It's good to see you. Well, you just saw them 10 minutes ago, right? So there's a lot of on stage performance that goes on. That's not, and a lot of that is not really performance. It's just performance between me and you. Yep. Like we have a thing. Right. So Alan Coulter, before he knew my name, I would always wear a Yankee hat. He would call me Yankee all the time. Right. So every day that he'd come out and I was there, he'd have to shake my hand, say, hey, what's up, Yankee? It's just a thing. Right. And that is an endearing thing whenever you're doing the warm up and Eddie Brill is calling the band out name by name, and Bones runs out and looks you right in the eye, points right at you in front of everybody. It makes you feel like,
absolutely,
that's my buddy Bones. Guys, everybody see that? It's my friend. You know what I mean? So like that's kind of guy that Alan Coulter was. Also, like viciously hilarious.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. His warm up at the end, because after Alan Coulter ended up doing the warm up.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic.
Yeah. It was really his moment to shine, I think, because that's his element, and he like talking to people is, and he would be the guy that was kind of hanging out, talking to people afterwards, too. He was a totally approachable, totally accessible, and really genuine, nice guy. And really, there's something to be said for somebody who's willing to put themselves out like that and make your persona, your whole public persona, the creepy guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or the guy that loses his temper. My favorite thing.
Yeah.
Walking off through the blue doors. My favorite part about all that was the one punch. You old whatever he calls. Dave, a really great name that the writers came up with. And then my favorite thing is that he's still on mic as he's walking. He's off camera. He's through the door, but you still hear him cursing Dave. And that's another thing too. Is that like that's another parallel too. It's like it's fun. It's always a winner to make fun of the host.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
To the host's face. Sue Helm turns to Dave and says, "I'm going to cut you." It's just the same way that when the writers come out and do this, did it to death with Stephen, they call him Steve because nobody calls him Steve. But the joke is that, he's our boss and we're supposed to know that his name is Stephen, but we just call him Steve,
That's amazing.
So I have that, you have that in show business, or I shouldn't say show business, but on a cruise, you have that with everybody. Eddie Falk has a thing with everybody, and that's another thing that makes these people great personalities to be around is that, when I see Eddie, which is rare these days, unfortunately, but I do see Eddie, and it's like, oh yes, all the old jokes, all the old things, all the old bits. You know what I mean? Even and it persists to this day. In the when Stephen runs out to meet the crowd for the warm up, that's when Giuseppe and Joe DeBonis come down from the back of the house with their Steadicam, and I have to take my flashlight and I have to flash my flashlight twice on top of the C-stand that they rest the Steadicam on, or in my mind, the building's going to fall down. You know what I mean? We're going to have a bad show.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, it's like don't step on the first baseline. You jump over the first. You got that. You got that stuff going on too.
back,
Yeah.
don't shoot the clown. That's what they used to say in sports. I don't know if anybody actually did that, but the idea is like if there's a clown in the audience and you get him on camera, that means there's going to be extra innings or overtime. You're going to be stuck. I take as a joke once to Giuseppe and Joe while they were walking backstage to start the shot, the opening shot. I said from The Wire, the chief used to send them out every day and say, "Don't get captured." And that's what I mean. So I said that to Giuseppe once, and he thought it was funny. And now I got to say it every day. You know? So and I'm not a superstitious person. You know what I mean? And any other aspect of my life, like I don't have lucky socks or anything like that. But like if I don't put that flashlight on the thing, and when there's a fill-in guy, when there's a guy that's filling in for Giuseppe, and I do that, I have to explain to him, "Oh yeah, sorry, dude, I got to do that, or else the boat is going to fall down."
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that it continues on if Giuseppe's not there. That's great.
It's for me.
God damn, Brian, this has been so much fun, and I
Yeah,
hate the fact that it's gotta. Yeah, no, this is absolutely awesome. This is your first appearance. It's not going to be your last. What is there anything else that you wanted to make sure we got out there today, on this your first appearance here before we close her up?
I'm sure as soon as I hang up this thing, 1,000 things are going to come.
Please do me a favor. Write them down. I said the same thing to Flaherty, and he did, and I'm very grateful that he did. So anything this week that pops up, you know what? I do the close off, and I say please wait, because I'm going to do the intro or the outro, and then we'll say our goodbye privately. But as part of that, though, I talk about our one and only sponsor. Our one and only sponsor of the Letterman podcast is hello-deli.com. Rupert doesn't own the deli anymore, but Dave gave Rupert the license to sell Late Show with David Letterman merchandise after he retired, which is the most amazing thing. Again, it's just a testament to the quirkiness and generosity. It's such a cool thing.
That's surprising.
And hello-deli.com. Rupert G still, trekking on. Anybody who wants to buy Late Show with David Letterman mugs or shirts or hats or anything, go to hello-deli.com. Let's I know he gets a kick out of whenever anybody on the show that he loves and knows that was a part of the show says something to him. What do you think about Rupert and any messages for him there, Brian?
I can go on forever, just like Biff. I spent a lot of time with Rupert on bits. Not thankfully not on the one where he got threatened with a knife. I was not there for that one, but I was there for one of my first big ones. Was Rupert water skiing in the Hudson River.
No kidding! Awesome.
I want to tell you, right then and there, I was like, this guy is something else. What a champ. Like, holy cow, that's the Hudson River. And it was choppy that day, and he had never water skied in his life. And it's like, okay, I'll do it. And and he's out there trying his darndest to water ski. And listen, the guy said everything Dave told him to say, which is a dangerous thing to do in public sometimes, So I think Rupert, for his, just grateful that he was there and that May was there, also, and that we got to experience that relationship, and like, good for him that, that he could, that the show could boost him. He's a guy who owns a little deli on 53rd Street. That ain't easy, and to be open to this while also being clearly a not a greatly outspoken person. He's not, he's a kind of a reserved guy. This takes a lot of courage, man, and I sure don't think he was in it for like the money or anything, you know what I mean? Like, you just love to, and I like to go in there, and like I said, the kids love Rupert and May, and when they found out that Hello Deli was closing, it was they were like they were upset, and it's like, and it just shows you how much of a stamp on your person that corner of New York City can just leave on you. You know what I mean? It's just astounding. It's just I like I said, it's I have to constantly remind myself to not get used to it. So, and Rupert and May were a huge part of that. No doubt. There's a new Hello Deli there.
Yep.
You can give them the benefit of the doubt, but they got a little bit to live up to.
Yeah.
And also I think it was good to in a weird way that the new show didn't try to pick that up where it left off, because you can't match that relationship. No. And Steven's a different kind of guy. And the other thing is too is that, like, our show's on a script, and Dave, if you gave Dave a script, he would probably laugh at you. You know what I mean? So the Rupert worked perfectly with that old show, and then just worked perfectly as our friend after that. So
very, very, very well said. Brian, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day to come on the Letterman podcast today. Just hang tight, and I'll say goodbye privately, but thank you so much for taking time to come on the Letterman podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Oh, man. I say it every time. This is why we do the show. This is why we do the show. It's so cool to take some of these stories that some of them may have been heard a little bit in part or whatever, and many of them never told. And it's really cool to organize this and to help start anecdotally archiving.
I hope you get more stories from more people, because there's a treasure trove there that is untouched right now. I mean, this is just my experience, and I'm just one guy, so.
Totally agree. Thank you very much for that. And again, and Dan has sent people to me and whatnot. Anybody who needs to come on this show, let's get them on the show.
Absolutely.
Let's get these stories archived. It's just such a pleasure to do this. I love it so much. This has been another episode of the Letterman Podcast with Mike Chisholm. Coincidentally, I am Mike Chisholm. Thank you and good night.
Go. Gonna drive. Turn.
Overcoat and underpants.